How's it going, everybody? It's me with my bro Miles here, due to popular demand, and this is somewhat of a vlog, but it's more of a response to a TV show that I've been watching for a long time. A TV show that seems tailor-made to piss me off, because it is by far... It's one of the worst shows I think ever aired on Spike TV, and okay, it's called The Deadliest Warrior, and I'm going to introduce the concept of the show for those of you who aren't familiar with this, because I don't think many people watch this one, but it's got kind of a cool premise. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of like some guys sitting around in a bar somewhere, and they start talking about, like, who do you think would win, Attila the Hun or Alexander the Great? I guess, well, nerdy people in bars maybe, but you set up this scenario, and so. What this show is purported to do is to compare and contrast the weapons and the weapons and armor of these warriors to determine who would win in a one-on-one fight. And I got a lot of problems with this show, and I feel compelled to dismantle it piece by piece. But to start off, I'd like to talk about the people they have that are in charge of hosting this show. There's like a cast of characters, and I'm gonna let you talk in a minute. I know. There's three people who run this show, and the first person, the guy who seems to be the ringleader, is probably the guy who pisses me off the most. And it's this big, chunky. I think he's a former Special Forces soldier. He's like a big football player, like that kind of jock that you grew to hate. He's this pretty boy, he's huge, and I don't know what he does.
They call him a biomedical engineer, but that seems like a fancy term. It's kind of like calling people grips on a movie set, you know.
Come on. Grips are highly trained professionals. I mean, trust me, I actually researched into being a grip. But yeah, this guy, I don't know what's up with this guy, because his only purpose on the show seems to be, I don't know what. He just kind of sits off to the side as they do these tests, and he's like, this ought to really hurt. Or like when something explodes or something gets hit really hard with like a mace, he goes, oh! And all he does is he just kind of stands off to the side trying to look knowledgeable about things that are far beyond his ken, you know, like just... He's like, we got all these explosives, we're gonna blow shit up with them, it's gonna be awesome, and that's his only job. Okay, but yeah, his only role is to go, oh, that looked like it hurt. The second guy, probably my well, let me save that one for last. The second guy is the computer engineer Max Geiger, that's like a comic book name. I envy that name, Max Geiger. And
he almost seems like an anime villain with the shiny glasses and he's trying to conquer the world.
And in actuality, the entire show apparently centers on Max, because everything that they do, all of the data that they collect, or allegedly collect, goes into this program by Slytherin Studios, where he enters all this shit in, and then he hits a button, and then you get like sucked into the Matrix. And then you see what the simulation... So he runs these simulations 1,000 times to determine winners. And depending on who won the most simulations out of those 1,000, that's who wins. You know, that's the winner.
What I love is they never explain how it happens. No. It's just like... It's all science and computer wizardly and magic and all that stuff.
It's just like he pushes a button, and even the announcer says, like, this high-tech program is really complex.
It's so
and shit.
Far above your heads, your puny brains.
But take a scientist to explain. Take a scientist to understand.
I don't understand why they keep pimping the Slytherin Studios anyway. It's not. Are we going to be buying this or something like that?
Yeah, but this program could be anything. He could just be like playing Civ 3, you know, and like just who would win, Spartans or the Mujahideen, and then he puts these armies against each other, and then he just, they win, and you're just like, bullshit.
It's GURPS or Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
that's what the science is. They're rolling d20s.
So it's completely obfuscated what's going on with this program, and so Max, he literally has no role in this entire show. He's given an equal vote on, like, what weapons are better than the others, but he does nothing. Like, he's just there because he has a laptop, it seems like, you know. But they'll do these things, they'll test weapons, and they'll go, what do you think, Max? And he's like, that knife is bigger. And then, and so, by the way, Max, he bugs me. Like, he kind of looks like the kind of nerd who, he wears a sports jacket, but he also wears, like, logo tees, like he got from Rotten Cotton or something like that. So you'll see him wear, like, a concert t-shirt with a sports jacket over it, and he looks like the biggest jackass. Like, if you're going to wear a sports jacket, just get, like, a one-color shirt, and, like, you know, like he's got.
It's a strange, like, nerd chic he's going for,
yeah,
where he's combining style with retro 80s shirts and that sort of stuff, and he's trying to look cool, but he's not.
So he doesn't know anything, about at least what's going on in the show, but it seems like he's only there because, like, I got this program, and it's my show, okay? So, third guy, my favorite.
I love this man.
I love this guy. I forget his name. I don't think anybody knows his name, actually, but he's a UFC ring doctor, like a trauma doctor.
He's a trauma surgeon also,
okay.
He used to be.
And so, his sole purpose in this show is to bring some medical expertise to this show, but that's not really what he does. What he does is, they'll do this thing where they're like, and now we test the naginata, the bladed staff weapon of the samurai. And so they bring this Japanese guy in, and they stab a pig carcass with a naginata, and then the trauma surgeon, he snaps on his gloves, and he looks over the wound, and he goes, yeah, that'd kill you.
That'd hurt.
That would hurt a lot. You'd die in about 5 minutes.
He's really not using his expertise. Like when it boils right down to it, people take these weapons and they do the most vicious, vile things to people.
Yeah.
Like they'll cut off heads, or they'll take a giant .50 caliber and blast you through the heart. You don't need to be an expert to do this. That's why it looks so moronic when you see this person who is a legitimate doctor, who does this for a living, and I'm sure he's very great at his job, but he looks like a tool when he comes up to a body with his head going off and going, he's dead. Yeah,
all he does, like, I've lost count. Like, every time they test a weapon, he goes up there, snaps his gloves on, sticks his fist in the wound, and goes, wow, he's really dead. Or, you know, he'll look at a gunshot wound and goes, that guy's shot in the heart, he's dead.
He'll have a ballista round through his chest, and he'll go, he'll die.
That'll kill you. And so that's, like, his only role. Okay, there, I've actually left out the fourth character, and that character is David Wenham, who is the narrator for everything that goes on. And he's like the guy who tells you, like, the actual educational stuff. So, like, when they're talking about Spartans versus... who the fuck did the Spartans fight? The Apaches, was it? Or ninjas? Was it ninjas?
Okay. The Spartans fought.
Well, the Spartans fought, like, two guys. It was... They did the first round, and then they did, like, the finals round where the Spartans fought the winners of the previous rounds. And it was, like... It was let's just say Spartan versus
No, it was
ninja.
The samurai.
Samurai? Spartan versus samurai? So, David Wenham, they'll cut to these recreated footage of, like, actors dressed as these warriors, and David Wenham, whose voice is always super smooth and sexy, he's talking like the character he was in 300, where he's like, and the Spartans, deadly warriors of days of yore.
He's telling the mythic battle of the samurai.
Trained for combat at an early age, they were thrown off cliffs if they were deemed inferior. Trained with deadly swords and bows. Their shield was impenetrable. And so, like, the reason you watch this show, the reason I watch this show is because I'm just digging the hell out of David Wenham, because he's just that awesome, where he's just talking like, the ninja, master of stealth and assassination, versus the pirate, deadly and cunning warrior of the Caribbean.
He's no match for the true Spartan warrior.
And then, like, I always love when they start talking about, like, he's like, Al Capone, dirtiest player of the Chicago underworld. Bootlegger and bastard. And so, like, I always, like, that, when I actually do, like, Mystery Science Theater riffs on this, like, in the David Wenham voice, so, like, I always start describing things like, I'm like, Mega Man, deadliest robot in the Maverick-verse, and, like, with a giant arm cannon, interchangeable with 9 other deadly weapons. He can jump and teleport and summon his robot dog. And that's his new weapon! Rush! Robot dog and giant trampoline. I don't know. But yeah, David Wenham. And so, this show is horrible. It is like, you don't even need to be a scientist to look at their testing methodology and the decisions that they make. Whether you think one guy is superior to another, and I almost always disagree with them, and even when I do agree with their assessments, I don't agree with how they reached that conclusion, but, like, their testing methodology is so bad and so inaccurate, and it leaves out so much that there's no science here. They pretend like it's hard science.
That's what upsets me, is it pretends that it's real scientific work, and we're really boiling down the science as to why this is so deadly. But when you get right down to it, like Mythbusters, it has loose science. It's not rocket science, as it were, but it's real science applied to situations.
They test their stuff way more.
And they test it
rigorously and testably.
Yes.
With empirical data. They use scientific method. You know.
They do, but with Deadliest Warrior.
Let's just set aside the notion, like the very thesis of the show, that we're taking characters out of time and space and then putting them together to fight. Actually, let's not do that. Because the very premise of the show falls apart when you start doing simple things. Like, when they say, like, a Spartan versus a ninja. Okay? Let's just take that premise. One, I'm not saying this would never happen, because it wouldn't happen, but let's just say that in this fictional verse we had Spartans and ninjas fighting each other. You never fight a Spartan. You never fight a ninja. Like, one-on-one, you don't fight a ninja. The whole point of the historical ninja was that they were assassins, and you didn't see them coming. They wore black, so you didn't see them. Their weapons were concealed. They weren't great weapons. In fact, most of them were converted farm implements. They were not great weapons, but when you sneak up behind a guy and you shove it into his esophagus, it'll probably kill him.
That was one of the things that, in the very first episode, it was one of the things that, it was like Apaches versus Gladiator.
Yeah.
And the Apache was the one that even brought it up. He's going, I don't even know why we're talking about this as if it's a one-on-one fair fight. Apaches, by their very nature,
do not fight fair.
Do not fight fair. They ambush people.
And of course,
they take people off guard.
In that episode, the chunkhead, the biomedical expert guy, one of his first statements was, like, I don't know how we're going to deal with this one. Gladiators, they were trained to kill. They were trained only for combat and death. And I'm like, they were not. They were entertainers. They were the professional wrestlers of ancient Rome. Now, they did hurt each other quite badly, in fact, and sometimes they did die, but they were not trained to kill. Not always. In maybe low-rent coliseums they were trained to kill, but not in this case. But, like, with the Spartans, that's, like, I always came back to the Spartans, because the whole point of the Spartan army was the fact that they fought in such an unusual style called the shield wall, and they would stab over shields. They would have a wall of shields, and they would stab over that. You never fought one Spartan. There was no point to fighting one Spartan.
And it was something... It upset me because they did another one where they pared down all their winners from the first season to find who's the deadliest warrior of them all, deadliest. And they're just tossing away people at certain points because, these people don't have armor, therefore they're out.
Yeah.
Like, they threw away the Apache. They go, well, the Apache doesn't have armor, so therefore they're out. But another thing they did was they separated different classes. They separated people by technological eras.
Before and after
gunpowder. But what upsets me is the Apache fought people with gunpowder.
They were called the U.S. Army.
They fought people on a technological level, advanced way ahead of them, and yet they're not on the same level to fight with people with bows, arrows, and swords.
I'd like to ask General Custer how he fared against the Indians. Because you can't, can you? Because he got a fucking tomahawk between the eyes. Jesus.
The samurai fought people with gunpowder.
They had people with gunpowder. Ashigaru, however you say it. They had rifle troopers. They were accurate as crap. I mean, they weren't accurate at all. But when you had 300 of them aiming in your direction, you were going to kill some people. They had, that leads me to my next point. Is they compare the weaponry, but they never even spare a thought to fighting tactics, strength in numbers, and landscape that they favor. So the very purpose, they never take into account the shield wall of the Spartans. They never took into account the fact that samurai were often mounted warriors, that Apache would engage in guerrilla fighting tactics, that the Irish Republican Army rarely fought in a stand-up fight, or even street to street. Like the IRA, they were notorious for bombing people with pipe bombs, nail bombs, cafe bombs. They did fight, but they were not the kind of guys to organize in small units and go in direct military action. And that's the way with all sorts of stuff. So like when they pitted a pirate against a medieval warrior, I was like, okay, when do you fight a pirate? And further, a pirate, you never see a pirate like just walking around. When a pirate attacks you, he's got like 60 other pirates, and you know what he's riding on? A pirate ship. So can we at least concede the fact that when a pirate sails up to you, his gun may not be that accurate, but he's got a ship with like a dozen cannons? So like, and a knight has a horse, he has a squire, he has all sorts of weapons, and that
does lead to one of the more hilarious parts of the episode when they do finally pair off against one another.
Are you talking about the simulation?
The simulation.
Yeah.
You see them and they enter it in. We go into the Matrix-like world.
Actually, the simulation is my favorite part because it's actually really well done.
We hit the button and we go into a Matrix-like world, and we see our two people. They're just strolling through the woods.
Well, that was the first one I ever saw was the Apache versus the Gladiator, right? And so they hit the button. I'm like, how the fuck are they going to do this? So you see the Apache, and the Apache's strolling around, and all of a sudden he's like, and they cut to the reverse angle, and you see a fucking gladiator. And the gladiator's got he's got all his armor on, he's got that big helmet, he's got this net and a trident, and he sees the Apache, and he's like, ah! Ah! And the Apache's like, what the fuck are you?
That's all he needs. It's good to go.
And the gladiator's like, you! And the Apache's like, alright. Boing, and shoots his bow, and then they start fighting. But it's a really well choreographed fight scene, and you really get into it. So like the last 10 minutes of that show actually kick a lot of ass.
But it's like that's all it is, though. Like you have one was William Wallace versus Shaka Zulu. And it's another one. William Wallace is just trucking around the highlands, and here comes this African tribal warrior going, "Ooh!"
Yeah, he's just bopping around, and all of a sudden you see fucking Shaka Zulu come out of a hut or some shit, and he's like, "Oh yeah!" And William Wallace is like, "The fuck are you doing here?" And Shaka Zulu's like, "Yeah." And Wallace is like, "I got a claymore," and they just go to town. My favorite one was they actually kind of had a story. The last one I just saw was Al Capone versus the James Gang. Al Capone's mobsters versus the Jesse James and his gangsters, right? So they hit the simulation, and I was like, how the fuck are they going to do this thing where like Jesse James runs into like Al Capone's mobsters? Like, what is Al Capone going to do? Like, who the fuck is this guy? And like, I actually the way I thought they were going to do it was like they're going to be in like a speakeasy casino, right? And like Al Capone's like playing poker with his dudes. All of a sudden the James gang like kicks the door open to the speakeasy, shoots the bouncer in the face, and is like, "All right, y'all, reach for the sky, money or your life." And Al Capone is like, "Boys, handle this." And no, but what they do is you cut the simulation and you go to like an Old West museum. And just the James gang is like poking around this Old West museum like they just stepped out of a time machine. Or like they're kind of like feeling their clothes, like, are you alive?
It's like Night at the Museum.
Yeah, like the wax dummies came to life, and Jesse James was like, all right. And so they start smashing open exhibit cases, getting their guns out, like, just like old times, let's do some crimes! And so they're like, loading their guns up, they're getting Winchester rifles and shit like that.
Meanwhile, Al Capone is driving up, and he thinks to himself, hey, this Natural History Museum might be a nice joint to hit up.
Yeah, he sees a Natural History Museum. He stops his car and he's like, "Hey, boys, let's go check this out and see if they want any protection." And
booze, prostitution. It's the museum.
He's like, or either that or he's like, I feel like taking in a little culture. And so the fucking Capone gang bursts in the room, and the James gang is like, shit! And they start shooting, and they start whipping out Thompson submachine guns, and they're like, ah, like that. And it's a really awesome fight. I was like, this kicks ass. And like fucking Capone is whipping out hand grenades and throwing them, and I'm like, this kicks so much ass. Yeah, and I think that leads me to the whole testing methodology that I bitched about so much. Not only do they let's just forget the fact that at some point I kind of had to accept they're not doing tactics. They're not doing terrain. They're not talking about the strengths of their very fighting styles. You know, they are purely going weapon to weapon, weapon versus armor.
I've had many discussions and made them go, well, it's not about all that. They're just testing which has the most lethal weapon.
Yeah.
And I can go, okay, but even at that point, you're still messing it up. You're failing.
So they never talk about they tend to pair it off into short, medium, long range weapons. Okay, like short to short, medium to medium, and then they do like a special weapon if they had any kind of specialty. And so what they do is they often mistake entirely the very purpose and function of the weapon that they're talking about. For instance, with the James Gang and Al Capone, I think their special weapon actually was the Winchester rifle for the James Gang. And for Capone, it was the pineapple hand grenade, or the pineapple bomb. So they do this thing, and they're like, they take this mafia guy and they throw a pineapple bomb through a window, and they blow it up, and they count how many dummies were seriously harmed by the explosion. And they counted like 4. Like all 4 were just blown to hell. And so then they go, well, what's with the Winchester? That's a gun. That's not a bomb. And they go, yeah, I could take out 4 guys in the same amount of time. And so they have the cowboy get his Winchester, and he shoots 4 guys in 5 seconds. By the way, this guy was like an expert, like world championship marksman and like gunslinger type guy. So he shoots the 4 guys, and they're like, wow, he took out all 4 guys faster than the hand grenade did. Winchester's better. And I'm like, it was amazing to me that they actually proved that the Winchester rifle was a better weapon than the hand grenade. That was one where, in particular, they were choosing better weapons, but they were choosing the better weapons for all the wrong reasons. Like, with the Winchester and the hand grenade, 2 entirely different weapons with 2 way different applications. You would never use a Winchester in the same circumstance that you would employ a fucking hand grenade. Right? So, especially, they compared the Thompson submachine gun to the Colt Peacemaker. And so, they chose the Thompson, but the reason they chose the Thompson was, which is the correct answer, by the way, just because of sheer rate of fire, but they do this thing, and this is what they often do with ranged weaponry. They do this thing where they'll set up like an obstacle course or a target range, where they'll be like, okay, you're going to run through this maze, okay? And we've set up 5 targets that look like gunmen. And you're going to run through this maze, and you're going to shoot and kill as many targets as you can, as accurately as you can, in the shortest amount of time. So they'll give the Peacemaker to this gunslinger, and they're like, okay, man, go. So the guy gets on his horse, and he rides down the course, and he shoots his gun at all 5 guys, and he shoots them all dead. Because he's an expert fucking marksman. You know, he's trained for years on how to shoot from a horse. And so they're like, wow, you got 4 guys. And so then they go to the mafia guy, and they hand him a Thompson submachine gun, and they're like, okay, I want you to drive past in your car and shoot these targets. And so they do that, and then, sure, he shoots all of them, because he emptied a fucking machine gun their way, and they're like, wow, the Thompson's better.
It's because they're testing the operator, not the instrument. You can hand anyone a Stradivarius. That doesn't mean they're going to play Mozart. Yeah. It means they're going to butcher a Stradivarius. By the same token, take, for example, they did 2 sniper rifles.
Yeah.
And there's something that you can test about 2 sniper rifles.
This made you so mad. I remember this. You raved.
Because, for one, they test the range at 75 yards. Pretty much every single rifle can go 100 yards. One rifle went 750 meters. The other one can shoot up to 1,000 meters. Which one is better?
When a guy's shooting you from a click away...
One is a bolt action. The other is semi-automatic. It cuts down on time when you have to shoot.
And they never think to employ a test for semi-automatic speed firing for accuracy in the bolt action, how much it throws off your accuracy, at any kind of range.
It cuts down on speed. And
75 yards for a rifle that shoots 1,000 meters?
You can also test accuracy with a rifle in its grouping. Some are, you can have smaller groupings, and it depends on the rifling, on how much variation you get on the grain of the bullet. But that's putting more science into it than they do. Mm-hmm. But it's just, how many people can this person shoot at a range of 75 meters? And sure enough, the crappier shot determines which is the worst rifle.
So here, let me put you an example and see if you can figure out the flaw in the testing methodology here. So they take the what was it, the Green Berets or Marines. I think they took, what was it, the fucking Spetsnaz versus
Green
Berets. So they do this thing where they're comparing their handguns, the Spetsnaz handgun versus the Green Beret handgun. So they do this obstacle course with the maze. They have the Green Beret guy run through the maze, shoot the bad targets, not shoot the friendly targets, and then they have the Spetsnaz guy run through the maze, shoot the bad targets, not shoot the friendly targets. The Spetsnaz guy, I think, missed one. He missed a target, or he didn't shoot it lethally, like he shot it in the hand or something like that. And they go, well, the Green Beret killed all 5 of his guys, and the Spetsnaz guy killed 4. Green Beret gun's better. And I'm like, that is so wrong. It proved nothing about the gun. Nothing. All you proved was that one guy is a better shot than the other. Or, not even that, you proved in that one circumstance, he hit more targets.
And there's some instances where you can prove that a gun is more reliable
yes.
or not, whether it can jam or not, whether it does have better accuracy or not. A Derringer doesn't have shit for accuracy. You shoot it and you pray it lands where you point it at, whereas you'll get some with very great rifling and you can shoot tight groups. That is something you can test. They're testing the operator. It has nothing to do with the gun itself.
And it's remarkable. You'd think like, oh, they only do that once. They only do that once. No, they do that like every single time with a firearm or even like a bow or something like that.
The testing method is shooting balls full of blood.
They'll shoot like a water balloon, and if one guy has a longbow and one guy has a crossbow, and one guy happens to hit one more water balloon than the other guy, they go, well, that weapon's better.
What I also love is
phenomenal.
even bombs. Like I remember one time they tested the Irish nail bomb versus the hand grenade.
I raved about this forever.
So they set up this scenario, and they set it up like this cafe or something like that, and they had the nail bomb set up, and they go, okay, let's see how much shrapnel hits all these different people, and it blows up. Everyone gets nails in them, and you go, okay, I can see that. So what would you think they would do with the hand grenade? Using science, you would try to repeat or test in the same conditions.
replicate the experiment in the exact same conditions, changing only the explosive device.
Exactly. What do? They put it in a dishwasher and they see it blow up.
There's no consistency at all in the testing.
What does that prove?
Nothing. Nothing at all. Oh, jeez, I had something and it completely blew my mind. What else? Oh, I remember. They only test lethality. I remember one where they SWAT versus the GSG-9.
Yes.
The German anti-terrorist group. And so they start testing weapons like the taser. And they were completely unimpressed by the taser. They were like, oh, that doesn't kill you.
No, they love the taser.
Oh, they did taser shockwave, the special SWAT deployment weapon that is meant for like riot suppression. They love that. Although I have seen several cases where they weren't impressed by non-lethal means at all, like pepper spray or something like that, where they were just like, it doesn't kill you, it pisses you off, it doesn't kill you. It completely, again, ignoring the fact that it's meant for a very special purpose. But what made me really, really upset was when they tested the the taser shockwave, which is meant to be a stationary device deployed in advance to where you know a group of people are going to be advancing from, basically deployed in advance of a riot. And then they tested against the GSG-9's Stinger grenade, which actually, if you've seen my Let's Plays of SWAT 4, I employ the Stinger grenade in a couple of circumstances. And actually, I don't have much luck with it. But what it is it's basically like a grenade of compressed not nerve gas, but like CS gas. It's
got rubber balls in it too.
Yeah, and it's got rubber balls in it, which when the grenade blows up, are propelled at great velocity and will knock the shit out of you. So you've got like the concussive force of a flashbang, the pain submission and concussive force of the rubber balls, and you probably got some gas in there as well. And so they do this thing where they test out the taser shockwave on these targets, and they're like, wow, it hit like all 5 of these targets. And then they go to a completely different testing area where they set up like a room with dummies in it. And they cover the walls in like styrofoam or like cork board or something like that.
Yeah, it's like cork board.
And they put the grenade in the middle of the room, they blow it up, and then the meathead, the fucking chunkhead, goes in the room and he's like, wow, that didn't do anything at all. Look, you see that? There's no damage anywhere. And I'm like, no shit. The weapon that's not designed to do any lasting harm didn't do any lasting harm. The fucking Stinger grenade did not destroy the room, and it didn't kill anybody, which is exactly what it's designed not to do. And so, immediately, he goes, this didn't do any damage, so the taser's better. And they, like right there, they just wrote it off. They're like, oh, taser, better.
The cop is like, well, stand in the room if you feel like it doesn't
I was
do
like,
anything.
I was raving about this. I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you shitting me up the ass? Like, I was like, all right. I would have walked up to that guy and said, like, all right, I want you to hold this bomb in your hand, like, right here. I'm going to let it go off. And 10 seconds later, I will walk in this room, handcuff your hands behind your back, stomp you in the balls as I leave. Try and stop me. I would have walked in that room, seen that dude weeping and clawing at his blind, fucking dripping eyes, and just had my way with that guy because he would have been useless. I'd be like, which weapon do you think is better now, dipshit? And I'm not saying like one is better than the other. They both have very distinct applications.
They're not even consistent in their bullshit now. I remember this last episode, they're comparing knives. They had Al Capone versus the James Gang.
Yeah.
And they had the Switchblade versus the Bowie knife. And Bowie knife is freaking huge.
It's like a
Crocodile Dundee, that's a knife.
It's like a fucking short sword, right?
Yeah. And so you think to yourself, okay, these guys are meatheads which are impressed by giant sticks and things that are going to carve things up in a quick hurry.
Every show in the history of this show, if the knife is bigger and heavier, it causes a more lasting wound, it causes more grave trauma, and they're all about that.
So sure enough, the mafia guy comes up and he sticks it, like an ice pick. He's hitting all the vital areas.
Yeah, he stabs a guy in the heart, he cuts his belly open, and they're like, wow, that was pretty impressive.
And so the cowboy gets up and he carves up this ham like a hot knife through butter, completely obliterates it.
Yeah, he takes his pig carcass and he just obliterates this thing with the knife.
And at the end of it, they go, well, that's impressive, but the Switchblade is more concealable.
Switchblade wins.
Switchblade wins.
And I'm like,
so wait, you're taking tactics over deadliest weapon?
Yeah, that one time they were like, well, tactically it's a more versatile weapon. And I was like, no! And what's even funnier is they always love this too, where as soon as the guy destroys this pig with the Bowie knife, he goes, and you can throw it too. So he goes up to like 10 feet, fucking throws this knife, and it like buries this thing up to the hilt in this pig carcass. And I'm like, they love that shit. If you can fucking throw it, and they were like, nah, stiletto. I was like, are you shitting me?
We were also railing about this before, how they completely missed the point of some weapons. Like they were doing some kind of horseman riding with a bow, and they also compared that to crossbow.
Yeah.
It was Genghis Khan versus Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
And Genghis Khan could shoot riding from horseback an arrow. And of course they do the same test where they have both of them fire. And they find that the crossbow is inaccurate. Which for once, I'll concede that that's something they can bring up in terms of lethality and useful weapon. But here's the thing. You can get any schmuck to fire a crossbow.
Yeah.
That's the point of the crossbow.
The crossbow was a revolutionary weapon in medieval times for several reasons. One, it would penetrate. It was basically a direct shot weapon that was quick to reload. It could penetrate plate mail, basically making knights completely obsolete because anybody could fire one, and that's kind of the point. Was like you didn't have to be super strong to pull and knock an arrow for great range. All you had to have was like a lever or at least some place to post your foot and pull the drawstring. And it fired like a gun. Well, guns fire like crossbows, whatever. So, but it was a point and shoot weapon, meaning it was much easier to train with. You could train peasantry to fire crossbows with great accuracy in a relatively short amount of time. Even so, these weapons, once again, designed for radically different types of warfare. Genghis Khan, when he had his men shooting from horseback, had a very fast-paced, mobile style of fighting, which was entirely unlike anything Alexander the Great would normally have to face. These guys, Genghis Khan's guys, were kind of ambush, circle, and demolish, while staying mobile with this thing. And of course, they completely ignore that by not having any of them fight on horseback.
But I'll completely concede the point that if you train a select group of people over a number of years, you can make them very accurate shots with a bow, more so than a person with a crossbow. But you can take 50 schmucks off the street, give them crossbows, tell them all to fire in one general area, and I guarantee you they're going to kill something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're talking about peasantry with crossbows or just any kind of bow troopers, the whole point of most of the archery in like Alexander the Great's time was the fact that they would shoot in an arc, and when you have like 300 to 500 people shooting in an arc at a massed area, with ranged out zones, with like even a ballista. Like that was nothing. It was like fucking Alexander the Great had a ballista. What do they count the ballista with? The lasso. So that was awesome. Yeah. And they were really impressed how the fact the lasso could kill you. With like the one very specific way it could possibly kill you, basically by hanging you. If a guy on horseback looped a lasso around your neck and rode off at a gallop, yeah, it'd kill you.
I'm expecting one, though, to be like Harry S. Truman versus Hitler.
I want to see...
The special weapon is the A-bomb.
Andrew Jackson, he was fucking crazy. That guy was out of his mind. I remember... I really liked the Alexander the Great versus Genghis Khan. Or Attila the Hun. Was it Attila the Hun? I think... Whatever. Let's say it was Attila the Hun. And I was like... I was really curious as how you fight Alexander the Great. How you fight Attila the Hun... one-on-one. And because this would never happen, like not even if you had like fucking TARDIS or something like that. If you had a magic phone booth and you like crash them down and you're like, I want you two to fight. No. But the setup for this was really amazing. I loved the fucking Alexander the Great one because you had Alexander the Great with like 3 guys. 3. And one of them had a crossbow, one of them had like a sword, and the other guy was crewing a ballista. So you see Alexander the Great, he's bopping around, and all of a sudden he's like, look! And then they see a village. And Attila the Hun's like kicking it in this village, like drinking milk or something like that, and he's got like these 3 Mongol dudes, or Huns. He's got these 3 Huns like sitting around him. And Alexander's like, check that shit out. Let's get him. And then the 3 guys are like, ah! And they start running down the hill. The one guy with the ballista starts cranking the fucking ballista. And I'm like, the one dude with the ballista is like, poing. And of course he hits one Hun dude like right in the chest. And the guy like windmills back. He's like, ah! And
I'm done.
Yeah, and then he was like, I'm out. I need like 4 guys to crew this fucking thing. Where are you guys? And so Attila's like, holy shit! Get him! Both of you! And so, like, both his Hun warlords are like, ah! And they start attacking. One guy's got a fucking rope, and he's trying to, like, He's trying to entangle this dude on his horse with his rope, and the guy with the sword is like, fucking get off! And so they start fighting, and of course it boils down to Attila the Hun and Alexander. They're dueling it out. Because Attila the Hun, by the way, has the Sword of Mars. And they even David Wenham, when they're describing the Sword of Mars, they're like, oh, according to legend, it was made of a metal from a meteorite.
Blessed by the gods.
Yeah, he's like, blessed by the gods and struck by lightning. It's a +4 Holy Avenger. It's got +4 to hit and damage, +2 to armor class.
Pierces through armor.
It's a weapon of wounding with a vorpal edge. With a snicker-snack it goes. And I'm like, they were like, oh, the sword. And so this dude brings out like a Sword of Mars, and I'm like, wow, it's magic, it's better. And so of course they're like, the fucking Sword of Mars is better.
Wasn't he? What was he in Lord of the Rings?
Faramir.
Faramir. Like, I'm almost expecting like a Lord of the Rings one where he's like, the Horn of Gondor. Summon allies to your call.
Elendil, the sword that was broken is now reforged. Versus the One Ring. One ring to rule them all.
I love him.
Sword of Gondor, wielded by my brother Boromir in the siege of Minas Tirith. Wait, no, he wasn't there. He was dead by then. Whatever.
The Riders of Rohan. Swift, deadly.
Versus Leonidas and his 300 Spartans. Destined to die and fearless in the face of the Persian hordes. Oh, I'm about done bitching about fucking Deadliest Warrior. It's just, I don't know why I keep watching this fucking show. Every single time I'm done watching that show, I go, that was the worst fucking show I've ever seen in my life.
I try to watch it, and I try to watch it for the same reason I think most people do, and it's just to watch weapons carve up shit real good. But still, it's hard to ignore. It's real damn hard to turn your brain off. And I'm just trying to sit there in a kind of comatose state, trying to watch it.
I'm just watching for the fight scene.
I'm just watching it.
I love the fight scene.
I'm just watching it for the brutality, and I can't turn it off. Every 2 seconds, I'm going, that's fucking stupid.
You know what? I remember.
Stupid. That's stupid.
It's all stupid. I remember what I was going to say is the Doctor's role. You know how I kept saying he comes in, he's like, yeah, that guy's dead. That guy's dead. Well, that guy's role is completely pointless. Of course, all these guys are dead. They're weapons. If I stab you with a knife, with a big knife, you're dead. If I stab you with a sword, you're dead. If I shoot you in the face with a shotgun, dead. So what I don't get is why, if I hit you over the head with a stick, you're probably dead. So I just don't get why this guy is around to tell me that these guys are dead. Of course they're dead. They're wielding weapons. That's why you carry a weapon. You wouldn't carry a weapon if it wasn't effective. You know, like, you wouldn't carry a fucking warhammer if it didn't make people dead. So, if a weapon wasn't any good, then it wouldn't have been used. So, I just don't, that's why I so desperately wanted some empirical data. They sometimes do this with, like, measuring the PSI of an impact, like blunt force trauma from a hammer versus, like, brass knuckles or something like that. I mean, at least they're trying to put some numbers to it, but I just don't get the whole point of looking at an entry wound from a sword versus an entry wound from a hatchet in a guy's skull and going like, I can't believe how dead that guy is. That's the point! You know, and they're when you're talking about weapons that don't kill you, for weapons that are specifically designed not to kill you, they're not impressed. You know, like when the weapon, like a rope, or a taser, or a stinger grenade that is meant to subdue, they go, well, that didn't do any damage.
Yeah, the SWAT versus GSG-9 both had, like, two things that aren't designed to kill you,
but will totally incapacitate you. You know,
but for some reason they factored it into being deadliest.
And so, I mean, I get that they want to just compare weapons. I fully understand that. But at the same time, they don't do it well. They don't do it accurately with any kind of definitive proof. And it does a great disservice to the very notion of these guys, like their very tactics and their artistry, like the way these guys would fight, or the vehicles that they would employ, all sorts of stuff like that. So, if you want my advice to save yourself a lot of headache, just like TiVo it and then skip to the last 5 minutes and watch that fight, because it really is like it makes up for like everything. Just I loved watching the James Gang fight Al Capone. It was so awesome. They're doing a video game. Did you see that?
Yeah.
They're advertising the Deadliest Warrior video game, which I think they're just doing like a straight up fighter, like Street Fighter type fighter.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be. I wonder how they're going to employ like the trauma surgeon or the meathead, like if they'll be like on the title screen or like the character select screen, like choose your warrior. Oh, the Apache? He's really deadly, but pussy, no armor. Like, or if we were able to choose people from like completely different eras of fighting, like Al Capone versus the Comanche.
But I'm still waiting for when they run out of all these I don't want to say legitimate ideas, when they finally go off the deep end and finally start giving fan service, like give us caveman versus astronaut. I want that matter settled once and for all.
That's exactly my. I would thank you for that, because I was leading into that. I am going to be starting a new video series. I haven't decided what it's called yet, but like Deadliest Fantasy Warrior or something like that. This is going to be my new series, and I'm going to do this every once in a while, where I am going to pit two fantasy characters against each other and determine who is deadliest. So I think what I'm going to do is, I think my first round, I'm going to pit, I'm going to call in Kara as my expert, because he knows more than anyone else about this one side. My first round is going to be Mechagodzilla versus the Megazord from the Power Rangers. Who is deadliest? And like, who else did I have? I prepared notes. Kill time, hang on. I had notes.
I'm no good by myself.
Yeah, I'll be right there. Where is it?
Hi. Yeah.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah, okay. I had other ones. I had other ideas that I wrote down. I'm sorry about that. I had Sherlock Holmes versus the Terminator. Who is deadliest? Or, what was it? Judge Dredd versus Bugs Bunny. Deadly. I still say Judge Dredd in the third round with a standard execution round to the back of his fucking bunny head. Yeah. The Fremen versus aliens. I had the Ghostbusters against somebody. Who the fuck did I have Ghostbusters against?
Green Lantern, I think.
No. I said I pitched that one, but that was stupid. Well, fuck it. I could do Ghostbusters against the Black Lanterns. That might be interesting. Who was the Ghostbusters fighting? At one time I said Ghostbusters versus the Army of Darkness, but you had I
had Ash versus Captain Kirk.
Yeah, Ash versus Captain Kirk, which I dig. See, it's that kind of outside the box thinking that we need for Deadliest Fantasy Warrior.
The Phaser versus the Boomstick.
Yes. Chainsaw Arm versus the Kirk Roll.
It's the Kirk Chop.
well, would Kirk get the Vulcan bladed weapon that it was when Spock had the Ponfar?
No, I think his special weapon would be the giant cannon he makes.
The Gorn cannon.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, that would never hold up against the boomstick.
Well, it's a special weapon. Like, he's got the phaser, he's got his Kirk chop, and then he's got the Gorn cannon, which he...
Well, you couldn't just bring the Enterprise to bear? Like,
yes.
Would he get the jet boots from, was it 5, Star Trek 5? See, I always bring up the jet boots because they were established in Star Trek 5 and they never bring them up again. Jet boots! Spock had jet boots! Damn it. But yeah, I'm so gonna do this. Where, like, I'm gonna figure something out where I'm gonna get, like, experts from both sides of this thing and I'm gonna be totally impartial. And I'm gonna get Linkara to argue the weapons of the Megazord, and I'm gonna find someone who knows shit about Mechagodzilla, and then we're gonna put them together, and I'll have like a fucking Flash animation where they fight. Yes!
I don't think we got enough money for Flash animation. We may have to go back to toys.
I can do toys. I will have fucking one way or another, Mechagodzilla and Megazord will find out who is deadliest. I'm out of here. I gotta get to work.